The teaser trailer for the long anticipated film adaptation of Wicked recently debuted during Super Bowl 58, and the reception from fans was mixed. In particular, they took issue with the what appeared to be unfinished CGI special effects. I myself felt mixed about the trailer too, but my mixed feelings were less about the unfinished CGI and more about why the CGI in the first place. Hi, my name is Nate, and I'm growing my hair out for my brother's wedding. If you're not familiar, Wicked is the hugely successful musical prequel to The Wizard of Oz. Debuting on Broadway in 2003 and still playing at the Gershwin to this day, many believe that it will dethrone The Phantom of the Opera as the longest running Broadway show in history. And that's a great thing because it's a much better show than The Phantom of the Opera. No shade to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Wicked has wonderful music, well written three dimensional characters, and a touching, simple story about friendship, betrayal, love, loss, and disappointment. But this is a musical, right? Why all the CGI? Why does a train need to be CGI? Why does a wheat field need to be CGI? Why is Elphaba diving through windows in bullet time like she's in the Matrix? Why the need to create this sense of epicness? The answer lies in the history of spectacle on film and the current success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before I dig in, I want to share that Wicked was the first show I ever saw on Broadway, and it holds a special place in my heart. For that reason, I want to start with what this movie clearly gets right. As far as the casting goes, this is a grand slam. Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey, and Cynthia Erivo are all exciting, high-profile actors, and they have Broadway-caliber voices. Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Yeoh are also inspired choices as the supporting cast. Can they sing? It doesn't really matter. Jeff Goldblum has a jazz show in Los Angeles where he plays the piano, so he does appear to have some musical ability. But even if he can't sing, both the Wizard and Madame Morrible can pretty much get away with speak singing. I'm also seeing what looks like some unique costume design and dynamic imagery with these interesting glasses frames we're seeing on Elphaba and the movement created by these sleeves on Glinda. But where I start to feel mixed are these big bloated shots of CGI nothingness. The comic book like hero shots of Elphaba leaping over camera like she's Wonder Woman. The fan servicey shots of Madame Morrible coming at you in slow motion like, oh, you better back up, Elphaba, I got monkeys. So what gives? In my opinion, the trailer for Wicked feels more superhero movie than musical fantasy. But if that turns out to be the case for the finished product, doesn't it only make sense given the cinematic flavor of the month? And by cinematic flavor of the month, I am, of course, referring to the modern superhero movie. And to understand its popularity, I want to briefly explore the history of spectacle on film. By spectacle, I'm referring to the act of exploiting a particular cinematic element and maximizing it to its fullest potential in order to dazzle an audience. Movie marketing then works its magic and turns the maximized cinematic element into the actual draw of the film. For example, it's not an accident that the fact that Tom Cruise does most of his own stunts is used to market the Mission Impossible film series, because stunt work is the spectacle that's on display. In other words, Tom Cruise doing his own stunts means more butts in seats. So spectacle can be stunt work, it can be combat, it can be wire work, it can be costume design, it can be landscape, it can be performance, it can even be color. And the spectacle presented by the film ultimately maximizes profits for the studio that made the movie. Now, occasionally, a particular cinematic spectacle will speak to an audience and a moment in our culture so much that it shapes the world of film around it for 10, 20, even 30 years. The spectacle of makeup and character design dominated film through the monster movies and creature features of the 1930s. Their popularity with audiences may have reflected a need for audiences to work out their feelings of helplessness during the Great Depression. Ironically, most of these monsters and creatures are the properties of Universal Studios. More on that in a minute. The spectacle of song and dance crushed at the box office for over 20 years, from the late 1930s to the end of the 1950s. Their popularity may have reflected an America that desperately needed to feel carefree as the Great Depression ended, but was immediately followed by World War. A more recent example of spectacle on film would be the spectacle of CGI, initially being exploited with the disaster doomsday movies that were so popular leading up to the millennium, but lost steam shortly after, perhaps reflecting our dread and anxieties surrounding Y2K. And of course, the current spectacle of CGI in the form of comic book superheroes, in particular the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which grew in popularity in the late 2000s, but really exploded in 2012 with the Avengers. We may be a little too close to this particular cinematic spectacle to truly understand its popularity, but I suspect it has something to do with the increasing political polarization around the world, but especially in the US. Nothing says pick a side, hero versus villain, good versus evil, quite like what the two-party system of American politics has become present day. Because one side has to be right, right? Not neither or both. That's the way our society thinks right now. Now, superhero movies make big money at the moment. And while I do think they may be on their way out, as they're starting to dip just a little at the box office and in terms of quality, Thor, Love and Thunder, I'm looking at you, there's no doubt about the fact that Hollywood still looks to the superhero movie as a sort of template for how to win big. Essentially, studios are trying to turn things that are not superheroes into superheroes. The biggest offender as of late is Universal. They made Wicked and they want $1 billion franchise, baby, so they're trying to copy Marvel's model. Ironically, this isn't even Universal's first time trying this tactic. Remember the failed Dark Universe? Universal tried to take its monster movie creature feature properties and turn them into superheroes. But the Mummy is not a superhero. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are not superheroes. Dracula is not a superhero, and neither is Elphaba. Trying to make properties fit where they don't doesn't just happen now, though. Remember when superhero movies were trying to happen pre-CGI? If you weren't Batman or Superman in the 80s and 90s, it was not happening for you as a superhero movie. Remember The Rocketeer? The Phantom? The Shadow? Neither does anybody else. Trying to make a square peg fit a round hole is nothing new. Ultimately, the heyday of the movie musical is behind us. The days of song and dance being the flavor of the month are over. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a wonderful and financially successful movie musical in 2024. Let's take a look at some of the ways to make that happen. The most successful movie musicals of postmodern cinema have been animated. Both Frozen 1 and 2 each cracked $1 billion at the box office. Relax, I'm not suggesting animation for Wicked. After all, Frozen is an adult-friendly children's movie, whereas Wicked is a child-friendly show for adults. Animation tends to feel young when it comes to musicals, so I don't think that's right here. But live-action movie musicals have also worked in postmodern cinema. Moulin Rouge, Chicago, and Mamma Mia were all huge ROIs for their respective studios. And that's in spite of the fact that we had to listen to Pierce Brosnan sing. Now, can you guess what these three very successful movie musicals have in common? A modest budget of $50 million. Wicked Part 1 has a budget of $145 million, and Wicked Part 2, because apparently Universal thinks Wicked is Dune, has a budget of $165 million. This is nuts. Naturally, Universal wants to dazzle you with its world building for Wicked, and the world of Oz should be dazzling, absolutely, but you don't need $300 million to do that. Fan favorite movie musical Labyrinth built a full fantasy world on a budget of $25 million in 1986. Now, granted, that's approximately $70 million today, but that's half the budget of Wicked Part 1 alone. Has Labyrinth aged visually? Of course, but so do all films, including films with CGI. The point is that a lack of resources often engenders creativity, like turning towards other cinematic elements to maximize and exploit to the level of spectacle that may suit musical fantasy better than CGI. Landscape in particular is one that is really underutilized here, or at least as far as I can tell from the limited footage that we get in the trailer. We don't need CGI farm fields, y'all. I'm sure there's thousands of real-life farm fields that look great and are dying to make it in Hollywood. More to the point, planet Earth has tons of landscapes that look otherworldly or downright alien. Starship Troopers was shot in the Badlands of my home state of South Dakota, and much of Dune was shot in Norway and Jordan. Let's take some of that CGI money and invest in a great location scout instead. And can we talk about the original Wizard of Oz for just a minute? There's a reason this 85-year-old movie is still watched present day. It's peak cinema, meaning they have pushed the medium of film to its limitations in terms of connecting with an audience by way of entertaining them and making them think and feel. And it does that with wirework, miniatures and scale, matte paintings, and practical effects. Y'all, the twister in The Wizard of Oz is made out of socks. Socks. And it looks rad. Still, have the matte paintings aged? Yes. But you know what hasn't aged? The matte paintings in many George Lucas and Steven Spielberg productions. We figured out how to blend that shit. And, of course, color. No film has dazzled with color quite like The Wizard of Oz, but there has been some really great color work over the last 8 decades. Also, if I could just nitpick a little while we're on the subject of color, the Wicked movie really needs to get some guts and take some creative liberties. I understand that by using silver shoes, you're trying to remain loyal to both the Wicked and the Wizard of Oz source novels, but silver does not pop against a backdrop of green. I had to watch the trailer a second time before I even realized this was Dorothy. That's not great. Do you know what does pop against a backdrop of green? Red. The ruby slippers being iconic was not by mistake. It's color theory. Trust your costumers and set designers to make changes, folks. These people are pros. At the end of the day, musicals are a form of storytelling where characters express big feelings by singing. I'm not sure epicness is the vibe to go for with a movie like Wicked. Instead, perhaps it should be wonder. Don't try to blow your audience's mind with the excessive use of CGI. Instead, try to make their hearts burst with the use of lighting, cinematography, editing, and camera trickery. As a film school graduate, I can tell you from personal experience that film criticism is easier than filmmaking by leaps and bounds. If you don't believe me, go watch some of the short films I've made and have uploaded to this YouTube channel. There's lots to criticize. It's easier for us to say what we'd change about Wicked than to actually make Wicked. But ultimately, I don't think criticism is a bad thing. It's just opinion based communication. And when the media in question is as popular, no pun intended, as Wicked, the criticism tends to be passionate. And what I notice about my criticisms is they have far more to do with capitalism, the Hollywood studio system, and the current state of cinema than they do with these undoubtedly very talented filmmakers. After all, many of these same critiques could also be applied to the lackluster live action remakes of the animated movies of the Disney Renaissance, most of which, coincidentally, were also musicals. Look, we're just talking about first impressions from a trailer here, and that trailer may not be the best reflection of the final product. But even if Wicked turns out to be a mediocre movie, or mediocre movies in this case, Wicked is not a mediocre musical. This is a fantastically written show with beautiful music, well developed metaphor, and near universal themes. For these reasons alone, I will absolutely be seeing Wicked Part 1 and Wicked Part 2 on their opening weekends. Of course, I'm curious about what you thought about the Wicked trailer and if you'll be seeing Wicked in theaters. But I'm more interested in what form of cinematic spectacle gets you to the theater in the first place. Is it costume design? Landscape? CGI? Song and dance? Combat? Tell me in the comments. Is anybody watching this?